The Dodgers are headed to the World Series. They do away with the Mets in 6 games in the NLCS. My name's Ryan Bershinger. He is Beau Benson. We're going to talk about it. We're going to celebrate it. And we're going to take a look at this World Series against the Yankees. This is the Sick Podcast, the Dodgers Zone. Let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. The Dodgers Zone.
That's strike 3. Dodgers have won it all in 2020.
Fernando Valenzuela has pitched a no-hitter at 10:17 in the evening of June the 29th, 1990. If you have a sombrero, throw it to the sky.
The sickest LA Dodgers podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Oh, Beau, this is so exciting. This is special because Monty is unable to join us tonight.
Yeah.
She had a pre-planned event that she had bought tickets for months ago that she's at currently. But you and I started podcasting about the Dodgers prior to the 2020 season.
Yeah.
The first podcast that you and I recorded under our former show, Swing Shift with Ryan and Beau, we recorded our first episode in January of 2020. And of course, as we all remember 2020.
Yeah, what happened that year? Anything crazy?
We recorded a second episode in February of 2020. And then our third episode was late March in 2020, where we're like, oh, cool. This was a good time to start a Dodgers podcast. This is a lot of fun. I guess we're just going to sit around and see what happens with sports. However, what did happen that year is that when baseball did come back, the Dodgers won the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this year is the first season of the Sick Podcast, the Dodgers Zone. So, I don't know, man. I'm going to let people draw their own conclusions.
Much like Blake Trinan, I'm just asking questions. Everybody else can find the answers themselves.
This seems to bode pretty well for the Dodgers. If we do have a personal impact, of course we don't, but let's pretend like we do.
No, we should absolutely pretend like we do. That's way more fun.
Now, a couple important things. One, the Dodgers have won the NLCS in 6 games, defeating the Mets tonight 10-5.
Yes.
Today is also your birthday.
Yes.
So, Beau, you and I both have ourselves a drink because we get to celebrate.
That's right.
We get to celebrate the pennant win, and we're celebrating your birthday. So, cheers. Cheers to
everybody.
That.
Cheers, folks. Mine's empty because I pounded it. I have a 1 beer limit. You can't see because obviously you guys are watching on the screen. I'm sweating like a hog. 1 beer is my limit at my advanced stage. I didn't really think about it till the extremely biased and unfair Joe Davis mentioned it on the broadcast. This is the first time since 1988 that the Dodgers get to clinch the pennant at home in front of their fans.
That's awesome.
That's wild. Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
I truly like to thank the Mets for winning that ridiculous game.
Thank you. Yes.
Game 5, so we could do that at home. Thank you.
Yeah. Avoid getting swept at home. Well done.
Yeah.
We get to clinch at home, which is so important because talking about that 2020 season, I think a big thing that Dodger fans were missing was the fact that we really weren't able to celebrate it.
No.
Like we did, but we did it at home. I was at a friend's house that day. Shout out to Brett. Thank you for all the support. And we sprayed champagne in his backyard with, us and our wives/girlfriends and immediate family. If they are able to win this one, the sort of celebration that's going to come after that
it's going to be biblical.
Wild.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. I'm going to be in the middle of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's going to be lawful. Who knows? Who knows?
Hopefully.
And if there's a parade in our future, I will be there. I don't care.
Absolutely.
When, how, why, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when Joe mentioned that on the broadcast, I think that was a good reminder as to what I tried to tell people going into this, the playoffs is it's important to savor all of this because you literally don't know when you're going to see that again. If you were at Dodger Stadium tonight, you're someone that has seen the Dodgers clinch in person for the first time in almost 40 years. And I know that because the Dodgers won the World Series in October 20th, 1988. So it has been almost 40 years since someone has seen the team do that. So enjoy it, because who knows what's going to happen over these next 4 games against the Yankees. But right now it's a party.
That's really special. I didn't realize that. So not only the last time they got to celebrate at home, clinching, or excuse me. So what you're saying is they won the World Series at home on this day in 1988.
Well, they won the World Series in 1988. Yeah. October
Yes.
20th, 1988 is when they won the World Series against the A's, I believe, right? I don't know
That's
if that was at home, but yeah, no, that's been my curse my entire life, dude. Being born the last time the Dodgers won the World Series.
Yeah.
I had to hear that every year for 34 years, 35 years, whatever it was. It's crazy.
That's
But
beautiful.
now that freaking woke Rob Manfred has moved baseball season back, we'll never have something beautiful like that again.
I know. Now we
Christmas
have a full
commercials.
week.
We're gonna have
Seriously.
Christmas commercials during the World Series.
Is the World Series gonna end before Election Day? Like just barely, right?
Jesus, I hope
Like
so.
if it goes 7, it's like a day or two before Election Day, which is the other narrative that comes out of this, by the way. If the Dodgers do win this in 2024, now we're talking about election year Dodgers, which
Game 7 would be Saturday, November 2nd. Yeah.
wow. Yeah. So just a couple days before. That's hey, listen, if it takes an election cycle for the Dodgers to win, then
Damn, that
let's
was
keep doing it.
that was the election year, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my
As
God,
miserable
dude.
as presidential election cycles are, let's do it every year if the Dodgers going to win the World Series whenever that
Jesus
happens.
Christ.
But of course, there's plenty of work to do until we get there. The Dodgers
Yes.
have a very formidable opponent in the Yankees. So, but let's
Can I just say, like,
Mhm.
seeing the highlights from that ALCS last night, when I saw Juan Soto come up with runners on first and second, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he's hitting a home run. That was preordained.
Oh, jeez.
And then I also thought, like, man, if I was a team that really wanted to win a World Series, I would try to have Juan Soto on my roster. I don't know if there's a team that traded him that maybe could have used him. I don't know, a team that went 24 scoreless innings. Does that ring a bell to anybody?
I think that's a good way to look at the path that the Dodgers have taken to get to this point. I give a ton of credits to the Mets. I think that, as we talked about during the division series, the winner of that series between Dodgers Padres was going to get to the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing against the Mets, but they really truly did look overmatched throughout this entire series. I mean, you had 4 games that the Dodgers won where they dominated, and 2 games that the Dodgers lost where they kind of threw them away. It never really felt like this was the Mets taking control of the series. This was the Mets winning a game. It just kind of felt like either the Dodgers blew them away or the Dodgers really let off the gas.
Yeah.
And nothing against the Mets. Honestly, incredibly likable team. Francisco Lindor is a star.
Yeah.
And a very likable player. Pete Alonso is going to get $200 million from the Giants, so I hope you guys are all used to getting ready to see him plenty in the coming years. But honestly, up and down that entire team, there's, I don't know. I mean, Jesse Winker kind of has a punchable face, but outside of that, like, what, it's not really anybody where you're like, damn that guy. There's no real emotional vitriol towards the Mets. It was just kind of, they were the next team and they got to a level that they really shouldn't have. And I say that as a compliment, quite frankly.
No, they're going to be, I hate doing the good game. I hate doing the Reddit shit, but like the Mets are going to be really good next year.
Yeah.
Like they have all the money in the world to spend. They have a legitimate MVP candidate in Lindor. I don't think this is like a fluke thing for the Mets, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah.
They just got there a little early.
They'll make some really good moves. I'm sure they will, because they're not afraid to invest. I think at least one of Scherzer and Verlander comes off the books for them next year. If not
I think
both.
so. Probably, if not both.
And obviously Steve Cohen is not afraid of spending his money, even if it's on games.
I think the Mets were Mets were still the highest payroll in this.
Yeah.
They're left in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, as somebody pointed out today, as prior to the game, the Dodgers were the lowest payroll of the three teams left in the majors. So
mom and pop Dodgers, man.
Yeah, just real scrappy, put together by glue. No, honestly, credit to the Mets. They played well. It seems that they did a really good job of reinventing these starting pitchers and creating a very strong starting staff out of what they had. It is, and this sounds facetious, but I mean this. It is a very interesting strategy that they've developed with their pitching staff where they tell their starters to not throw strikes. But I think that for other teams, that might work against them, getting a lot of swing and miss stuff outside of the zone. And there is a, kind of a strategy to it. In essence, like prevent any sort of hard contact and try to get more swing and miss stuff by just breaking stuff that's not in the zone. Unfortunately, they ran into a team that's very smart and knows how to prepare for those kind of pitchers, is very patient at the plate, and can draw a ton of walks like crazy. And that was a big thing that we saw tonight. They got Sean Manaea to throw over 50 pitches after 2 innings. Yeah. And that was huge.
I would like to take a victory lap. I told y'all Sean Manaea was not going to do that twice.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Honestly.
There's no way.
Yeah. It was really hard to see, after game 5 where I kind of pointed out like, okay, we just saw Jack Flaherty have an incredibly strong start in the series and then get shelled later in the series. Why can't that happen to Sean Manaea? Yeah. Realistically speaking, there's no actual logical basis to that sort of thinking, but it did come to fruition. That is what happened.
I mean, there's probably something to the idea of seeing him already, but you could not convince me that Sean Manaea was going to shut down the Dodgers in a do or die playoff game. There's no way. There's no fucking way.
No. And the Dodgers were incredibly effective against him right off the bat. Working counts incredibly well. Otani leads off the game with a hit, and that really set the tone very nicely because that already established like, all right, lefties are going to be able to hit him. And Teoscar then coming up and getting his first hit of the series, even though he destroyed it and thought it was a home run and watched it and kind of jogged out of the box thinking it was a home run. And
is that what he did? I didn't get to it in time. Is that what he did? Yeah, I saw that he hit the wall. I didn't know he lollygagged it out of the box.
He did really run hard his second time up. When he got his single in his second at bat, he busted it right out of the box. So he learned his lesson, and that's important. Now, luckily, it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things because NLCS MVP Tommy Edman is a person that is in the middle of the Dodgers lineup. Edman came up there and was able to put it down in the corner, drive into. And I mean, just what an awesome series from Tommy Edman. For him to have somebody in the lineup who at one point was batting 9th and then at the end of the series was batting cleanup, and for him to be as productive in all of those spots in the lineup, whether he's playing shortstop or center field. He played short the entire series because of Rojas being out. But the point is it makes perfect sense why Andrew Friedman has been targeting him for years. He's Andrew Friedman's dream player.
That first inning in its entirety is like a perfect summation of why. One thing that has always stuck with me is Molly Knight, the writer, when the Dodgers hired Andrew Friedman, she just sent a tweet that was like, the one thing that the 31 other, however many teams there are, 30 other GMs in baseball didn't want to happen is Andrew Friedman running the Dodgers. And that first inning tonight is the exact reason why, because Kopech did his job. Like Chris Taylor blew that first inning with the throw to Muncy. That's the only reason the Mets scored. Kopech did his job.
Right.
And then Edman puts the game right into the Dodgers' favor in the bottom of the first.
Yes.
They were acquired for Miguel Vargas at the deadline. And nothing against Miguel Vargas. I love Miguel. It just clearly was not working here. But like that every other team had the opportunity to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Friedman is the one that pulled the trigger because, Edman didn't start playing till like September.
Yeah.
And now legit, as far as I'm concerned, he's the shortstop of the future.
Oh, absolutely.
Just sign him to a long-term deal in the offseason. No need to let him play out the year on his contract. You don't need to spend $200 million on Adames. You can absolutely make do with Tommy Edman. He should be on this roster for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. It will be much easier for them in the future to find more outfielders in free agency or trade. It's hard to find a shortstop as we've witnessed,
as we know,
since Corey Seager left the organization. Yeah, they brought in Trey Turner, which, it's hard to get many players better than him to play short, but also at the same time, that was an eventually expiring contract, and you knew what kind of money he would command once that contract was up.
Yeah.
So then the plan after him was like, all right, Gavin Lux, you give it a shot. And of course he broke his leg, and then everything kind of fell apart from there. But yeah, this is a point that you've been harping on all season, that the Dodgers not having a super reliable future option for shortstop is something that has kind of clouded their lineup throughout the year and kind of projecting things forward. Edman is an elite defensive player wherever you put him. He's a switch hitter, which adds such incredible depth and versatility to the lineup. And he's hitting for power right now. Ever since he started hitting for the Dodgers, he's been hitting for power, which is crazy because he hasn't had that level of power previously with the Cardinals. So, he's under contract next season, but that sets things up very nicely to maybe just look at giving him a nice extension in the offseason, assuming that he continues this level of play into the World Series.
I don't even think personally, I don't really care about his production at the plate overall. He's not a net negative, and I don't think he will ever be a net negative.
Mm-hmm.
He's just so good defensively. Mm-hmm. And as long as this team rosters Mookie, Freddie, and Shohei in the first three spots there, I'm not too concerned about getting super production throughout the entirety of the lineup. Those three need to be enough, especially when you have an elite defensive player like Tommy Edman out there playing defense. You should not be giving up more than 5 runs a game anyway.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's nice to see that issue solved.
Yeah. And just to wrap up this, because we should definitely be living in the now in terms of what's going on with the Dodgers, but just looking at where they're going moving forward. Just kind of looking at Tommy Edman this season, you can kind of think about what they did with Chris Taylor a few years ago. Of course, when Chris Taylor first came to the Dodgers, and for his first few years there, he was fantastic. Then he had a down season, and then he had a decent enough season, had that big walk-off in the wild card game, and was kind of able to get his new contract out of that. Looking at Edman here, it's a slightly similar situation where you've got a guy who's coming on really strong at the end of the season, and you're like, oh, this is a very versatile player who we can plug in multiple spots, and it's somebody we want in our franchise moving forward. Even if in 3 years Tommy Edman turns into what Chris Taylor is now, which is unlikely because I think the ages don't fully line up. But even if they did, you at least would get a version of current Chris Taylor that is a switch hitter and a better defender. And that still has incredible value. And I'm not trying to bash. Chris Taylor had 2 hits tonight.
He was huge tonight. Yeah.
You know what? We'll take it. Anyway, let's settle back in here for a second, because a point I want to make, obviously winning the World Series is the ultimate goal. That's the end goal. We've been counting down with every episode. Hey, now it's 7 down, 4 to go. Okay, this is job's not finished, of course, but it's really hard to get to the World Series.
Yes,
and we as fans have to appreciate this. You can celebrate this. We get a full week where we get to celebrate this before the World Series actually starts. This is a huge moment.
Yeah. Think of how long this season is.
Yes.
Think of where the 2 teams that played tonight were just 6 months ago, whenever the season started.
Yeah.
You had Otani embroiled in a gambling scandal after the first game. Yamamoto makes his debut, looks like shit.
Yeah.
Like 4 games into the season, Mets fans were not going to games. They were being
Right.
like no hit by the Tigers.
Mhm.
Like baseball seasons are long, incredibly long. Baseball games themselves are long. Like there's so much that happens. And like just to get to this point, it's absolutely something you should be celebrating. I already ordered a World Series patch hat. I made the mistake of not doing that in 2017, which was the first World Series that I was alive and conscious for. I made the mistake of not ordering one because I was like, oh, I want to wait till they win. And then it's like, you know, they lose in game 7 and now we know what was up. And so it's like, man, I kind of do wish I still had a hat to commemorate that.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big deal. This is Shohei Otani's first trip to the World Series.
Yes.
Like, this is Aaron Judge's first trip to the World Series. Like, this is something that baseball fans should be celebrating regardless of the outcome. Like, I don't think people understand yet how fucking huge this series is for this sport. Like, Dodgers Yankees is what baseball has been praying for decades, literally decades. And for it to finally happen now with these two teams, that's awesome. It's awesome.
It's so exciting. It's going to shatter ratings records. It's going to be a huge deal across the world. This is a gigantic for Japan to see Shohei Otani in the World Series. They're going to be watching every pitch, every moment. I'm not sure what the timing is in terms of like what time that's on for them. Even if it's at 3 a.m., they're going to be up watching it live because this is such an important moment. No, this is super exciting. And just think about the last couple years where the Dodgers have fallen short from getting to the World Series. You had 2021 where everybody just kind of fell apart and the arms got tired and everyone got tired and they just weren't able to get past a very good Braves team. Obviously they won. So it was, and then for the last 2 years to have a first round exit to opposing teams in the division series and how heartbreaking and how frustrating that was. We don't have that this year. We got past the Padres and we're back to the World Series. This is fantastic. Like, this is great. Obviously, again, not the ultimate goal, but it deserves to be celebrated. You deserve to celebrate it because if you're somebody who is watching this team throughout the season, if you're somebody who's watching every game, even if you're just kind of following along on a daily basis of what's going on with the Dodgers, even if you just check in here and there, in order to be invested into a baseball team, that is a majority of the year.
Yes.
And then if you're doing it every year, that's a majority of your life.
Your life, yes.
So it's not every year that your team gets to go to the World Series. So celebrate that. It's very important because this is a great accomplishment. It really is. Regardless of the path that it took to get there, and still, obviously, again, getting past the Padres was very difficult. And against the Mets, the Dodgers could have easily not shown up. And that's what we've seen for a few years now, where the Dodgers offense just doesn't show up. They showed up, and stars played like stars. Otani produced. Mookie produced. We didn't have Freddie Freeman in the lineup tonight, and they still scored 10 runs. That's the second time they did that in the series without Freddie. That's huge. This
has been such a good baseball postseason for kind of reframing how we approach it, as I've mentioned previously. But these two teams are here because their stars showed up.
Yes,
like there's nothing else to any reason why they're here. Like Soto, Judge, Stanton, Otani, Mookie. Even you want to go deeper, like Trinan. I would consider Trinan one of the Dodgers stars. They all showed up.
Yeah, they
all came in, did their jobs. Like, it's not about having the pitching or having all this stuff. Like, it helps, certainly. Like, those Giants teams won because they had their stars were Tim Lincecum and Madison Bumgarner, and they showed up.
Yeah.
You never had it
last year.
Yeah.
Corey Seager,
Garcia. Yeah. Like, that's what it's about. And I'm hoping that is kind of looked at more seriously going forward, because I've mentioned it before, but it always pissed me off that Dodgers pitchers last year got so much blame when Mookie and Freddie went 1 for 23 or whatever
Right.
it was. That is always going
Yes.
to piss me off.
And that's the thing. Baseball is such a hard sport where shit like that can happen all the time,
Mhm.
where your stars just disappear. People, Yankees fans were furious with Aaron Judge early
Yeah,
on in this postseason.
He was not showing up. Yeah.
Yes. And of course, obviously, us as Dodger fans, a lot was made about Mookie's struggles in the postseason coming into this postseason. And for the first couple games, he wasn't producing. And so that narrative was hanging over him. And he's done a great job at responding to that. So, this 100% should be celebrated. I want us to look ahead to the World Series, but there's one more point that I want to make. During the 8th inning, I did, in fact, tune into the Barstool live stream. And there were it was 445,000 people watching, and it's just a camera on a group of 10 Mets fans just sitting there watching the game being miserable. It was very entertaining. But what I want to say is, again, as I mentioned in the last episode, I kind of feel bad for those guys because it's not like the typical Barstool streams where I figured they all just have money on the game and that's why they're acting that way. These guys all seem like genuine Mets fans who are actually sad. And so I kind of felt bad.
But not a lot.
I mean, I can't fully feel bad for anyone when they lose because, obviously I want my team to win. So
yeah, no.
I prefer my life, but anyway. But for these guys, though, one of them made a point that I think is so important for Dodger fans to hear. He goes, "This is the worst Dodger team we'll see, too. We're not going to see a worse team than this one when they move forward because Otani's going to start pitching. They didn't even have Glass now in the series. And overall, it's a great point. And Dodger fans, you need to hear this because this is how people view the Dodgers. They're looking at this Dodger team and going, this isn't even their final form. This was our chance to actually get past them. Now for the next decade,
and there's
by this team.
There's no reason for this team there's no reason for them not to spend money in areas where they might need to tune up.
Yeah.
Shohei Otani makes $2 million a year. It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just great.
Yeah.
We should, Monsi's not here, so we'll hold her to this, but if the Dodgers win the World Series, we all need to get we don't give a fuck tattoos. We're doing that. That's happening.
Oh man.
That is they're gonna make so much money off of shirts and stuff if they win the World Series. Oh man.
No. It's possible. It's possible. I'll keep it in mind. If it's good for the brand.
That's right.
I'll do what I need. Okay, so before we wrap up, let's take a look at this series. We might talk. There's a big break now.
Yeah, there's a huge break. We got time.
Which is great because I kind of need it. We've been locked into this on a daily basis. It's gonna be nice to have a few days off here. At first
John
glance,
Gruden mode, feeling nicey.
just the Yankees are a very strong team, and there's a lot of ways to look at this. I'm genuinely 50-50 about the series because I really truly think either team can win, and it's hard to say whether one team has a major advantage over the other because they both have strong offenses. They both have strong collective pitching. I think that one thing to be concerned about with the Dodgers is the pitching staff, because I think we saw tonight that employing a bullpen game for multiple games in a 7-game series is potentially dangerous.
Yeah. But I think thankfully there's so much time now between now and game 1, and there's more days off during the World Series, I believe. So there's probably only going to be one bullpen game necessary during the series, which will be very helpful.
Are they doing that where there's an off day between 4 and 5, even though they don't travel?
Sunday there's an off day. Then they'll play Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday there's an off day. Play Friday, Saturday. So there's
they play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday though. right?
Oh yeah,
Because
there
if
you
they're
go.
off
Monday, Tuesday,
Sunday,
Wednesday. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So it is
that's still
the standards have you.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now, yes, with the lengthy time off, you're resetting the pitching staff. You could probably then go Yamamoto game 1 because you figure he needs the longest time between starts in order to go back out there. So that way you give him enough time where he's either throwing in game 5 or game 6. I think it works out where he throws game 5 then, but 6 is probably more preferable for him. And then I would go to Flaherty game 2. As Dave talked about, I guess he was under the weather coming into that game, which would explain why his velocity was down a tick. If he just simply wasn't at 100%, and hopefully under the weather is not any code for any sort of arm injury in any sort of way.
Yeah, that would be 6 days rest, which I think he'd pitched on during the season anyway. So
yeah,
certainly more ideal.
Yes. And then you can roll out Walker in game 3 because it sets him up nicely for either 6 or 7. So, but you do have to still employ at least one bullpen day in there. And so maybe they do that. That's where it gets weird because that's why they did it the way they did in the championship series, where they put the bullpen day on game 2 and game 5. So that way, well, I mean, I guess game 5
if you
was
start
an
Walker
intended bullpen day, but they put it in game 2 so that way you had the day off after. But
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
The one thing though, the one thing that I'll really say, I haven't had time to collect thoughts. I'm sweating. It's I've hit my drink limit on one. I actually trust Dave to figure it out this year, which has not been the case in the past.
Yes. Yeah. Overall, I think he's done incredibly well. I get that there were questions that people had even in tonight's game, because of the nature of the bullpen game. It's either like, at what point are you bringing out guys? At what point are you there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and it's fully normal to have one or two that kind of get questioned along the line somewhere. But I thought overall tonight's strategy worked really well. It helps, of course, when the offense gets going pretty instantly, because I doubt that the Mets' plan was to have Edwin Diaz pitch the 4th inning. But when that happened, it's like, all right, you got to feel good now, because we're trying to figure out, like, what are they going to do after this? And the answer was kind of figure it out and see how it goes. It didn't really work terribly well for them, but it worked in the sense that they needed to stop the bleeding instantly. And so I get that that's why they went to Diaz so early. But of course, then after that, the guys also need to stop the bleeding in their innings at that point. And Ryan Stanek didn't have his best stuff tonight. Kodai Senga, is a very good pitcher, but has thrown like 8 innings all season. So, it's hard to fault him for giving up anything in his 2nd inning of work there. So, but overall, I think we saw a lot of good stuff from the pen tonight. We even saw some shaky moments from the relievers tonight. And if they're getting their shaky moments out now, then that's fine.
That's great.
Yes,
that's
I understand
ideal, yes.
The bullpen game has not been flawless since game 5 against the Padres. But they still were effective enough. Guys were able to make stops when they needed to. I liked the move to Ben Kasparius in the 2nd inning because you figure if he's going to pitch in that game, let's do it early. It had the danger of being a Landon Knack sort of thing, but he's, I think, right now a better pitcher than Knack, so he was able to get the job done there. Ryan Brazier gave up a home run, and then they stuck with him for the following inning, and it paid off. He was able to get out of that. So,
the Mets had all the chances in the world throughout the series. They just didn't capitalize. It felt over in the bottom of the 3rd, and then the Vientos home run happened. And after that, it was like clutching your pearls every time. But I think Davis mentioned it on the broadcast too. Like, the Dodgers were more tested this year in the division. And I do wonder if that kind of helped them be more prepared for October. Because nothing came easy in this game, especially. Like the Mets didn't just fold.
Yeah.
Obviously you score 6 runs or 3 runs, 4 runs, whatever it was in the eighth. That you're not coming back from that, but like the Mets didn't just roll over. So, maybe that'll help the Dodgers in the World Series. I don't know. I certainly don't know. But I think they had a much more difficult path to get here. And that usually pays off for these teams.
Right. And that's where I look at the World Series and I think, okay, maybe that's something that goes in the Dodgers' favor then. Because the Yankees had a pretty easy path to the World Series. We talked about that the Guardians 100% were a better team than people realized. But they also, like Emmanuel Clase, who should be the best reliever in baseball, got lit up twice in that series. And I don't know if how much of that is on the Yankees and how much of that is on Clase just being the shittiest version of himself in 2024, which is wild and just sucks for Cleveland fans. Like, imagine if we toss out Blake Trinan and he starts giving up 3-run bombs out of nowhere. Like, I think it was in like game 1 or 2 when Clase first blew a save and gave up a 3-run home run. It was the first 3-run home run he had given up all season. I don't know if he did that against the Tigers or what. Anyway, the point is that, he was their best, most significant piece out of that pen, and he was a shell of himself. And the Guardians had a very strong pen, and they had a lineup that was able to compete, but overall it was not a very competitive. I mean, it was a competitive series. They had games that were actually close, unlike our series. Yes. But the Yankees were able to get out of those. I don't know. I'm trying to find reasons why the Dodgers might have had an advantage, and maybe I'm wrong in assessing that. But it was a topic of conversation that even like the Fox guys like A-Rod and Jeter brought up is the Yankees' path to the World Series too easy. The Mets were a 6 seed that barely got into the postseason. But
nobody has it easy in the MLB postseason.
Right.
Nobody has it easy.
Right. No, 100%. I don't think the Yankees played a team as hard as the Padres were.
No. The Padres are the best team. Padres are the best team in baseball going into the postseason.
Yeah.
Getting to play them in the first round is such a huge advantage for the Dodgers. Because getting them out of the way early is really insane. Because you're not going to face anybody more difficult at all. And no disrespect to the Yankees. None. But Padres were playing the best baseball going into the postseason, and they were still good.
Yeah.
So getting through them and by them is a blessing.
Yeah. No. But yeah, now we face a very strong Yankees team.
Right.
They get Garrett Cole at full force. They got Carlos Rodon and Luis Gil and their rotation. Like luckily their bullpen is kind of, it has been rocked in their last couple games. Old friend Tommy Kahnle has been used a lot for them. And sometimes he's been giving up stuff. Even Luke Weaver, who is one of the best relievers of baseball down the stretch. He had a rough go of it in their last game. So, but of course we know how good their lineup is. Aaron Judge started hitting. So, that makes their lineup incredibly dangerous. Giancarlo Stanton is hitting well, which makes him incredibly dangerous. Juan Soto's hitting well, also incredibly dangerous. It's going to be an awesome series. I think as baseball fans, we have to sit back and go like, all right, this is going to be fun. Thank God we're getting this series with these two teams, these two brands right now at the stage that both of these franchises are at. It's very exciting.
Yep.
Hopefully the Dodgers win, obviously, but I don't know. Maybe we'll talk to Steve Covino before the series. Maybe we'll do something like that again. Of course, the Dodgers had their number when they played each other in the middle of the season. Hopefully that's prescriptive, but hard to say. Yeah, that was a few months ago. So, All right. Final thoughts, Beau. Let's wrap this bad boy up.
God, I don't know. Just have fun, everybody.
Yes.
Enjoy it.
Seriously.
Apparently, this only happens once every 50 years. So.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or like lunar eclipses or whatever.
Yeah.
Dodgers and Yankees in the World Series. This is very exciting. And again, celebrate the fact that your Dodgers have gotten to the World Series. Because again, not every baseball fan gets to experience this. Nope. Some baseball fans never get to experience it. Some once in a blue moon. We get to experience it just a few short years after their win in 2020, which is awesome.
Mark Walter said 4 and 8 years, man, that the Dodgers have won the pennant. That's
incredible.
That's a dynasty stuff. I'm sorry. Like that is.
Yeah.
That's 50% of the time in the last decade the Dodgers have been playing in the World Series. People should appreciate that.
Absolutely. We're very lucky. We're very lucky. We're going to be with you every step of the way as we go into the World Series. Maybe we'll talk before then. We'll see what happens. But we definitely take this time off to kind of recollect, focus on other parts of your life that you have more control over. But also celebrate. This is an awesome moment for us as Dodger fans, and very excited to take on the Yankees and hopefully get another ring for Los Angeles. So for Beau Benson, my name's Ryan Bershinger. Monty Bolaños will be with us next time. This is the Sick Podcast, the Dodger Zone. Follow us on Twitter at SickPodDodgers. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, follow us on YouTube. Like and subscribe. We'll love you forever. Domo arigato, everyone. 7 down, 4 more to go. Let's get that title, baby.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, the Dodger Zone, on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.